Rock Community Church. My name is Matthew Koinu, and I have the privilege of being the lead servant here at this house. We welcome you. When you're at Solid Rock, you are home. So feel at home, and we are excited about your presence here. We are here for one reason. See us, hear us. That is the agenda for this meeting, that we would hear one another, that we would see one another, that we might build that beloved community that Martin Luther King was talking about. I'm going to open us up in a brief word of prayer. Please do not feel obligated. That's just our custom here. Gracious God, we look to you. In moments of crises, there is no other help that we know. We're here, Lord, because our community is wounded. Our community is hurting. And we want to turn this sanctuary into a hospital. We're asking for healing tonight in our community. We're asking for justice in our community. We lift up a specific prayer tonight for Taylor Bracy. We pray for her. We pray for her family. We pray for strength. We pray for healing. And we pray for that situation, that incident. We pray for justice to roll down like the waters and righteousness to flow like an ever-running stream. Bless this occasion. Let it be peaceful. We're not here to bash anyone. We're here to build a community together. We thank you, and we pray in the name of Jesus, and to all respect to those who are here, who bring their religions with them. Amen. At this time, I'm going to open up and introduce someone who is a fearless and peerless leader in our community. None other than the esteemed, I call her the honorable, and I still call her Commissioner, Angela Eady, who will be our moderator on tonight. Please welcome her with a warm round of applause.
Thank you. There is an American flag out in the sanctuary, so can we turn around and face the foyer and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With regard to the incident that took place at Liberty High School a couple of weeks ago, I received in excess of 23 phone calls from 23 separate individuals, youth, in this community wanting to know if there's anything that we can do. They were all upset, they're frustrated, their anxiety is running high, they're scared, the whole 9 yards. They want to talk. So I asked, what is it you want to do? And she said, one of the ladies said, Commissioner, I want you to do something for us. So I said, let me ask you this. You are aware that I'm not the commissioner, nor the mayor. She said, no. So with that being said, if you don't know that I didn't win the election, we have a bigger problem. If you voted and you don't know that I didn't win the election, that's a problem bigger than what we're doing right now. That's a lack of awareness. So with that being said, let's continue and focus on being aware of what's going on in our community each and every day. So we're going to move on, and I'm going to introduce you to the panel that's here to speak to each and every one of you with your questions and concerns that you may have, not only just to this incident, but maybe something in the future. Maybe you can gain some insight with what they're telling you. And what I'm going to do is just call their names, and I want each one of them to individually just stand up and introduce themselves and tell the audience about him or herself. First, we'll have former Major Jacob Ruiz.
Thank you, Angela. My name is Jacob Ruiz. Been in law enforcement a little bit over 20 years. Recently retired from the Oslo County Sheriff's Office as Major over the Administration Bureau, which included the School Safety Division. I was in that role for 4 years and also served back in 2005 and 2006 as an SRO at Parkway Middle School and Point Siena High School. And thank you for having me here tonight.
Thank you. Next, we have School Board Member Terry Castillo.
Okay, here we are. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is a really great turnout, and it's a great time for us to kind of have fellowship and really talk to each other about some of the issues that we're having. So like Ms. Angela said, my name is Terry Castillo. I am a member of the Osceola County School Board. Today I am here as a parent. My daughter is a student in the Osceola County School District. I'm also a graduate from Osceola County School District. So most of what I want to do today is listen, right? We do a lot of talking on the dais. Today is my turn to actually listen to you. So I'm very honored to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Ed Jones, retired principal.
Good evening, everyone. As stated, I'm a retired principal from Osceola High School. Was my last stint, 40-year educator, and I'm happy to be here to give any kind of input that I possibly can. And thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you for being here. And next we have Mrs. Deloris Macmillan.
Good evening. Thank you for coming tonight. And as one of the panelists said, the purpose of this meeting tonight is to hear from you. I know there's a lot on your mind and you have a lot of reactions as to what has happened. But I'm Deloris Macmillan, retired principal after 38 years in education. I have a passion for students. Having been principal at Parkway Middle, Osceola High, I feel that I have been very instrumental as far as students' total growth. Personally, the academics as well as the emotional and social behavior. So I'm here to express give you my input and listen to you. I know you have a lot on your mind, but we want to listen to you tonight. That's the purpose of this venue.
Thank you all. Now, I'm going to ask the first question. I would like to know, and this goes to former Major Jacob Ruiz, I would like to know, is there a difference between an SRO and a regular deputy that's out on the street?
Okay, here in Osceola County and the state of Florida, SROs are law enforcement officers. A lot of them are very experienced law enforcement officers. When a person signs up to be a police officer or deputy sheriff, they go through the police academy, and usually their first tour of duty is in patrol. And they have to serve a certain amount of time, usually a year or two, depending on the agency, in patrol before they can move into a specialized unit. School resource officer units is one of those specialized units. So yes, they are law enforcement officers, just like we see on the streets, just as we have detectives, canine officers, and things like that. But as they move into a specialty, there is specialized training within the School Safety Division for SROs, which many agencies, including here in Osceola County, strive all SROs to attend.
And that task of an SRO is mandated by law, correct? They are required?
Correct. Well, yes, especially after Marjorie Stoneman Douglas incident in Broward County, there is a mandate for on the sheriff's offices of every county to have in every public school either a law enforcement officer or what they call a guardian program, which is a civilian type of security officer who had received some type of training from that is regulated by the county sheriff.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Now I'm going to open it up to the audience if you have any questions. What I'm going to ask you to do is go to a microphone, state your name, ask your question, and before you leave, there should be some white there, just wipe the microphone down so that the next person that comes up to ask a question, it'll be clean. Sure.
I'd like to comment on that question. As far as the terminology is school resource officer. And I think we have lost emphasis on the word resource. He's a resource officer. That means he can be called upon as a reference in the classroom. When I was principal, I used our resource officer to go in and be a guest speaker in the classroom with the teacher. If a student is having a problem with bullying, then that officer will intercede as far as counseling those students as well as the counselor. Also, I had the resource officer to talk about gang resistance. I assigned the resource officer to an extra class for the 8th graders, and they would take his class, and he could discuss whatever questions that they have. And he could get an insight as to what's happening in the community and build a rapport with the students. So students, I don't want you to lose sight of the word resource officer.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Go to the microphone, please. Good evening. I hear you. I hear you. Is your mic on, sir? Hold on just a second. Hold on.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you.
Anyway, I put 4 children through Poinciana High School, Horizon Middle School, Reedy Creek Elementary School. I have comments, but my one question is, do we utilize security now, or do we just have resource officers?
I can answer that. So we only use resource officers in schools that are governed by the county, and schools that are governed by the cities, we use Kissimmee Police as well as St. Cloud Police. And so the reason that decision was made, and I'm not sure if there's anybody here who remembers about 20 months ago when the state passed the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas law, there was a decision that school boards had to make. So whether or not we used school resource officers, which we had been using already, whether or not we use guardians, which would be security officers that would have some kind of specialized training, or the other more controversial option would have been to arm our teachers. Wow. And during that, yes, very controversial, right? So during that time, there was a lot of activists that came and spoke to us. That was probably one of the first decisions I made as a school board member. And ultimately, we decided to go with using resource officers at the time.
Okay. Well, you know, the reason for my question is my wife, 5'2", about 130 and 40 pounds at the time, used to be in security at Oslo High School. And, you know, she would break up fights. She would dive into a fight with football players just to break it up, you know, de-escalate a fight. And that was pretty much it. I mean, it must have been fun. It would have been great to video because the fights never went anywhere because there's no intimidation with her. In fact, I would say for 2-3 years later, I don't know how many students from the high school would come up to me and my wife, maybe at a fast food place, and go, "Oh, hi, Miss Tracy, how you doing?" She had such a rapport with the students. Kids trying to run off campus, she would, you know, get over here, you know, and just like a mother to them. And it made a big difference. And we volunteered so many hours at the high school that Disney would give the maximum donation 2 years in a row, like 300-400 hours, football concessions, wrestling, baseball, band, And I've seen so many things on campus. And just listening to the kids gets to, it's a way to understand what, I mean, I'm surprised that more of this doesn't happen using resource officers. And I'm not putting down resource officers. There's a purpose for it. But it seems like we've gone way too far. And I felt like I wasn't listened to all those years because I'm going like, what are we doing here? You know, why are we going to this level? We've gone way too far. In fact, many of the students, I mean, I wanted to help because a lot of students I knew, because when we used to help out with baseball, we knew they had a lot of problems at home. You know, we take them on the side and talk to them, and, you know, there's a lot had single parents, some had no parents. And I know it's difficult for the school, and but believe me, I'm not putting down the school or, you know, the way we went about it, but it seems that we can do a lot more if we just listen and be able to just get someone on the side and see what's going on. Like, when I heard of the video, my first thought was, wow, how do you get to this point? You know, it seems like that's where we I don't want to say fail, but that's where we missed. You know, what happened to that point where kids get to fight where they don't even listen anymore and they want to keep going? But, you know, I mean, I can go on and on. I can talk about a lot of incidents, but we need to, I guess what I'm here for, if we can put together and communicate with the students, with the faculty, with the resource officers, and with the administrators and the board members, and come up with a plan other than the direction that we've been going in since the year 2000 when I was in the school. It definitely has gotten.
Let me say this, because I understand what you're saying. I'm a native of this area, born and raised here. I've been here 56 years. And the concept that I grew up under was it took a village to raise a child.
Absolutely.
And the village did raise the children back then. I can truly say that because I was one of those children. But there's one key element that is required to allow that to happen, and that's the word that Aretha Franklin made a song for it called respect.
Respect.
It's got to start there.
Right.
It has to start there. But I understand exactly what you're saying, and that's a good suggestion.
Well, yeah, and you know,
Very good suggestion.
Well, Deborah Pace was one of the principals when my kids were in school, and she had the T-shirts respect, and
Yeah.
she was trying to, you know, focus on that, and it worked pretty good because you bring it to, you know, to the forefront. So that's what we have to do, and not get to this point, and you know, because if we keep going, if we have to make a video and put it on the news and to get attention, we're failing. Because then it gets all thrown out of proportion. We got to stop doing that.
Right. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you.
But you're right. You're absolutely correct. Thank you for your comments.
Hear from
Is there anyone else? Oh, I'm
You hear from
sorry.
the
I'm
student?
sorry.
Okay, sorry. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Oh, okay. Hello. Good evening. So I'm here on behalf of Florida Student Power Network and Soul Sisters Leadership Collective. Is that better? Okay.
That's better.
Thank you, Pastor. So I'm here on behalf of Florida Student Power Network and Soul Sisters Leadership Collective. We're a collective of organizers and community members from Miami, South Florida. My question is in regards to the SROs and their roles as, I guess, guidance. I heard, I can't remember your name right now, I'm so sorry, the director of the NAACP, I believe you told me? Ms. Macmillan, yes. I heard you mention that sometimes student resource officers serve as guidance counselors, correct?
I can answer that.
Well, no,
So-
I'm not done with my
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, I guess, in the capacity that the student resource officers are serving, do they have the training to operate in the ways that I guess you all have traditionally used them? Because I'm understanding that they have training, but is that part of their training to be serving as someone who should be in the capacity of a guidance counselor?
That's a good question.
And not acting as a guidance counselor, but the resource officer can answer that.
Okay.
But interact with the students.
Right, so the state of Florida, many agencies across the state have recognized an SRO as having 3 tiers of responsibility within the school. Obviously, as a law enforcement officer in charge of the safety and security of the campus and everyone in it, as guidance in regards to law enforcement matters and criminal justice related matters, especially for the administration, the staff, and things like that. Also, as educators in regards to law enforcement matters as well. When I was an SRO at Poinciana High School, on top of all those duties, I taught 3 classes to juniors and seniors in a criminal justice class, which was a college level course. So those are the 3, and personally, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself, not representing any agency or anything, just based on my experience. Let me add a 4th, and that is establishing positive relationships with our especially with our youth. I think it is the ground zero for our communities to grow and to really break down these barriers that we see across our country between law enforcement and our community. And it starts with changing the minds of our youth and having a positive outlook on law enforcement. I think it's an awesome responsibility for our SROs to build those positive relationships as they're young and as our kids go into adulthood and into our communities.
Okay, and just a follow-up to that. So are there security specialists within the county? My mother is a security specialist at a school in South Florida, and they work in tandem with the student resource officer. So I'm wondering, is that something that you all have in this county?
No, we don't. As
Yeah.
Terry said.
We
yeah,
do not, and once again, it was a decision that we made as a board, and I would actually extend that to as a community, because during the time when we had to make that choice, there was a lot of pushback against having anyone other than a trained law enforcement officer in our schools. So we only use school resource officers. I don't even know if the law allows us to use anything other than the 3 options that have been listed within the law. So I'd have to go ahead and confirm that, but we are currently only using SROs.
Interesting. Thank you.
So follow-up question to you, because this is actually for you. Can you come back, please? Yeah, this is a conversation. Interesting. Help me understand why.
Well, it seems to me that, in my personal opinion, to take a security specialist out of the way kind of makes, to the officer's point, a ground zero situation seem like a battleground. And I'm wondering why it feels like you are at war with the youth of this county.
No, well, took that out of context. I'm not saying it's a battleground. I'm saying it's the starting place where we can establish those connections, because I'm in school, as the SRO is in school, the students are in school, and this is my great opportunity to establish those relationships. It's kind of hard out there for the patrol deputies or the police officers.
I mean, they have 3 different jobs from what you're saying. So yeah, it would be hard to kind of communicate with youth and students in this situation if you don't have a team put in place. The woman at the mic said, Miss Angela said that she grew up in an era where there was a village. If you're not instituting a village mindset and coming into these places acting like, oh, this is a ground zero situation, you're preparing for battle for these young people.
It's the perfect place to establish, as the SRO, the law enforcement officer in the school, to establish that guardian mindset approach to our kids, and basically having that humanizing the officer and having those kids understand the role of a law enforcement officer, not only just in the schools, but in the community abroad. And I know that there's a lot of kids with a lot of questions that they don't know, and they see things on TV, they see things through social media that perhaps are not always positive. An SRO can really answer those questions, clear things up.
I mean,
what's right and wrong,
respectfully, they see things in their neighborhood, they see things in their school that might affect how that person, that school resource officer, to y'all's definition, might, interact with them. You don't see, and respectfully, none of you all interact with these youth on a daily basis. So I can understand that a school resource officer seeing that as a battleground might respond differently
I
to
can
a
tell you
student.
that's not the approach of law enforcement here in Osceola County and across the state of Florida, that they're not going into the school as a
I
battleground.
mean, respectfully, sir, he body slammed this young girl. So I don't know if that can be really said in a truthful way.
Well, that's a specific incident, and I know we're not here to really talk about that specific
Exactly.
incident because it's under investigation, but we're here to have a positive conversation about
No, this is
relationship-
positive.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not taking it in a
about-
negative
about the
situation,
role-
but to your point,
about the role
if
of
that's
an
not how
SRO.
they see it, then why was she body slammed?
Well, let me say-
Excuse me. Are you from Osceola County?
I have family in Osceola County.
Okay, good. Well, we're here to hear from the students. Maybe they can have an input on.
I talked to them for
Okay.
several
Well,
weeks now.
we want to hear them tonight.
I've been a student in the public school system. I know what it feels
We
like.
have a student here that want to talk.
Okay.
Yes.
We
Thank
can
you.
talk, we can have a respectful dialogue, but if I can't get my point out, then, you know, it won't be respectful, to y'all's point.
I do, Ms. McMillan, do you mind if I just address one additional thing? Is that okay? And I don't know, ma'am, what is your name?
BK.
BK, okay. So, and this is something that I've been thinking about in general, so it's not just a conversation about specific incidents and whatnot. We understand the reason why we have school resource officers, and I'm gonna say this again, because this is a culture challenge in specifically Florida. Anyone has access to a gun, right? And we remember the reasons why we had to establish the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas law is because there was unfortunately a very sad event where children were massacred, right? So now put that into perspective. This is what school resource officers or guardians, or in some counties, this is actually a thing, teachers who have guns on them are thinking. While, yes, we want our school resource officers to have that communication and all of that, first thing that they're doing is protecting the students against those specific issues. Is that right? I think that's a question we need to ask ourselves, right? That's the bigger question. Why do we have to have resource officers? Why is there so much violence, right? Why is this particular state so open to having, you know, there's additional questions that go into that we have to kind of put into perspective when we're talking to someone about how they're interacting in the schools. In my opinion, you can tell me if this is wrong or not. The first thing that any officer is thinking is there's danger, right? That is the entire reason why the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas law was put into place. And I'm not saying that to you to excuse. I think that you have a valid point, and that is a point that we need to explore as leaders in our county specifically. However, I also think that it's important that we understand, right? The root cause is we live in a country where anyone can have a gun, and at any point, extreme violence can happen.
I understand your point, and I just
Yes.
want to make this and I'll sit down. There are age limitations on who can actually get a gun, and I understand, like, in Stoneman
Yeah,
Douglas,
that was a
that
student.
young boy, that
Yeah.
young kid had access to that gun, though. I don't think he bought it, right? So if we're talking about who has access to weapons, the school resource officers have weapons on them before any other child does. These are children we're talking about, right?
Absolutely,
So
yes.
I think the reframing of this conversation really needs to be understood that there is a bad faith ethic that is
Yeah.
happening across the board, across the country, when it comes to young students and how they are protected and
Yes.
taken care of in their schools.
And
I
that is
agree.
actually part of the conversation. It is
Well, I feel like
part
that
of the
conversation needs a little bit more depth because the bad faith ethics that I'm hearing in here has a real coded language that I feel like a lot of people aren't going to bring to the surface. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my
Hi.
name is David Caicedo, and I'm speaking on behalf of students who actually fear retribution and that are from Osceola County.
Wait a minute, hold on just a second. Are you saying in fear of retribution for being here?
Yes, fear of retribution for speaking up and saying their full opinions because they have been threatened by principals, they have been threatened by SROs, they have been followed by security teams from the school board for some reason.
We have
know.
security teams on the school board?
Yes, because I received reports, and I can follow up with you.
Please
on that.
do, absolutely.
Now, so to my question, actually, and it's related to the previous conversation, actually. What is really the mandate, right? We quoted the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Commission. We quoted the Guardian Act. What actually is the mandate, like what's written on paper, the mandate for the SRO program under the law? And the follow-up question to that, and I'll let you just continue answer it, is it at all, in any way, the mandate to handle disciplinary actions within the schools? And I'm going to let you answer. I understood from the previous portion that this is a dialogue. I'm going to allow for you all to answer.
Yeah, great question. Yeah.
I'm not sure what the second question is. Can you repeat that, please, or expand?
So, in the case that happened, and I won't name the case that happened in Osceola, let's just say in ABC County, another student got tased. In ABC County, another student, 6-year-old, was handcuffed. In ABC County, another student had their hair pulled. In ABC County, another student was tackled. In ABC County, another student was knocked unconscious. Now, and that ABC goes way, way, way back to A, back to Z, multiple times beyond 26. So that is the grounding for the second part of the question of, is at any point disciplinary actions in the mandate of the SRO according to the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, where, just for context, I knew of students at Parkland who actually said that there was an officer at the school at the time of the tragedy at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and he actually went the other way. He actually went away from where the troubles were happening. So I actually want to understand, and possibly the SRO that was here, because in the 4 duties that the SRO mentioned, safety, policing, teaching, positive outlook, did not mention disciplinary actions. So what exactly is the mandate according to the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Commission, who, by the way, has 0 people of color, 0 students, 1 woman, 2 parents that were actually impacted. The rest are either pro-gun, ultra-conservative, all white, and are former law enforcement or current law enforcement. For the record, this is the commission that we're referring to, who are also the people that recommended that students be monitored and that students be monitored digitally. They're also the folks that recommended that teachers be armed. They're also the people that, again, have not spoken to any students, that actually my organization, Florida Student Power Network, along with others, had to file a lawsuit against the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Commission, and we won the lawsuit because they held their meeting at a 5-star resort in Osceola County.
So my question is to you, what is your question?
And I'm just giving grounding because I was asked.
Okay, I got you.
So back to the question, it is, what is the mandate of the SRO program according to the law that placed them there? And at any point, is this handling disciplinary actions any part of their mandate?
I'm going to try to go straight to the question about handling discipline from an SRO officer. That's not their job, okay? That's not their job. The job of handling discipline is with the principal, assistant principals, deans, and other authorized individuals who are non-law enforcement. Yet, there are situations that I've seen hundreds of times over where administrators try to get students to adhere to instructions stop fighting, don't approach this other student, etc. But once that student disregards direct commands, administrators, and I'm speaking from experience, administrators are put in a difficult situation because we are not supposed to put our hand on the students. So what do you do when one student goes after another student, or a teacher, or a cafeteria worker, or whomever? That's when you call the law enforcement in. And once they take over, it is technically out of our hands. But I want to come back to, this is where relationships, building relationships come in. I have always had an issue as a principal, as an administrator, that we don't get the opportunity to decide what SROs serve our school. There ought to be, in my opinion, input, not only from the administration as to what SROs come into the school, but parents and students. Every person who works at a school is interviewed by the principal, except for the SRO. So I hope that helps to answer your question. I know it doesn't completely answer your question, but there are certain guidelines we have to follow as administrators, and we can't cross the line, and that's when the SROs step in.
Then my first question, what exactly is the mandate for the SRO program in the schools? Because disciplinary is not one of them.
I don't know what you mean by mandate. What is
So the
guiding
law,
them being there?
In the conversation that just happened previously, you actually stated that because of what happened at Marjorie Stoneman
Yes.
Douglas, that SROs are in schools.
That
If-
they're required, we are required to have some kind of armed personnel. In Osceola County, I'm going to quote this one more time. Osceolians, you might remember this. 20 months ago, we decided that we wanted SROs. The other option would have been a guardian, or it would have been an armed teacher. So those are the three options based on the mandate. Am I still not understanding your question?
No.
Are you
No.
asking what are the
So,
requirements of an SRO?
I'm just asking, and I'm just gonna get to the point then.
Okay.
The point is
Please.
that you have SROs body slamming children, you have SROs tasing children, you have SROs causing trauma on children. This is not actually an isolated incident that we're talking about right now. It's become a trend. You all keep saying, I've heard the term, there's a few bad apples. Well, the tree is rotting because children are being hurt in the state of Florida, and permanent trauma is being caused on children in the state of Florida. Now, that's why I'm asking the question, because also I was at the school board meeting the other day, and Osceola County actually turns out you all don't have a policy on how to deal with SROs. Unless I heard that wrong in the school board meeting the other day, there is not a policy on how to deal with SROs on the part of the Osceola County School Board.
So SROs are not, they're in our schools, but they're actually employed by whatever agency they work with. I guess my question is your question, how are we disciplining the SROs? Because I still don't understand what your question is.
And I think that's a sign of the
Yeah.
larger problem.
No,
that you're not
I am
understanding the question that I'm
So
asking.
I guess would you please clarify? Because that's what we're here to do. Could you?
I've been
Yes.
clarifying.
Hold on, wait a minute,
Thank you.
wait a minute. Hold on, let's
Yeah.
Here you go,
Yeah.
come to the microphone. This is, we have another person here.
Is there a form, and I believe this is what he's trying to ask, is
Yeah.
there a form like an SOP in place?
Yeah, I
for-
understand what you mean. Got it.
or
So.
Is that in place? Is there something in writing that says what
Right.
they're supposed to do and not supposed to do?
So there is a contract that states what they're supposed to do with regards to while they're in school. They're not employed by the Osceola County School District. We are in partnership with them. They're actually employed by their agencies. So is there a specific, there's a contract that states what they can do and what they can't do. There's a contract that states that they are able to participate in additional guidance in the school, but with regards to, I don't know, like step one, step two, we don't really have something that is very, very well defined. Now, I want you to be sure that I would not put myself as an Osceola County school member in a position where people are asking me questions that I may or may not have answers to in bad faith, okay? When I ask you, please clarify, it isn't a ploy, it is because I really want to know what you're meaning. Do we possibly have to go back and say, hey guys, let's work with our law enforcement agencies to see exactly how we can resolve this issue? Yeah, possibly. That's what we're here to do.
And so what I'm saying is you should be working with the community. You should
Which
be
is
working
why I'm here,
with,
right?
That's why we're
And
having this
we should be
forum.
working, but this is not working with us right now. I understand that this is a preliminary conversation, but I would actually like a commitment that you will sit down with actual students to figure out what this policy is to deal with this issue.
Well, I'm here as Terry Castillo. I cannot speak for the board, and I
Okay.
will not speak for the board. However, I can tell you that because I am here, these are the kinds of conversations that I am able to take back to the board.
Perfect. I'm just, you know,
Are
I'm
you
gonna,
from let me ask you this now. Are you from Osceola County?
but I just said in the beginning that I'm representing students from the Osceola
Oh,
County
okay,
School Board
okay.
who have been threatened and have been harassed by principals and by officers for speaking up against this. So I'm speaking on their behalf because they do not feel safe because of the presence of police in their schools that have been harassing them to speak.
I think it's important, since you stated that publicly, that you and I get together and you
I
give
was
me as
gonna say-
much information as possible.
I will
because
definitely give you as
if-
much information as possible.
Absolutely. We definitely don't want to, I've always had an open door policy, which again is why I'm here, and I know a lot of people call me, and I have no qualms about getting with people. I have not heard that any of our students are being threatened. If that is happening, you need to give me information such as names, times, so that we can go ahead and handle it. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
And
and
I've
that-
taken up enough space, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
just allow for other folks to speak, but just to clarify, right, like, the mandate of SROs is not at all in any way to handle any kind of disciplinary issue. The reason for SROs being in school that's supposedly given is not in any way, in the least, to handle any kind of disciplinary action for any student. Therefore, they should never, ever be called to handle disciplinary actions for school because, as the previous conversation just clarified, they're not actually trained to deal with children. They're trained to deal with high-pressure situations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Children are being hurt.
Thank you. Before I get to either one of you, is there anybody that has questions online? Do you know?
Not on my feed, no.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. You were next?
Yeah. Oh, she has been waiting for a little bit.
Hi, my name is Lisandra Bonilla, and I live in Kissimmee, and I'm also part of Florida Rising, and we deal with community issues. So I have 3 questions. The first question is, when an officer wants to be placed in a high school, is it assigned or is it volunteered? I would like to know the amount of training, because for me I used to live in Connecticut, and I was going to be a foster parent. I had to do over 6 months of training just to deal with teenagers. And also, my last question, do they get like a yearly evaluation? And also, do the officers meet up with the deans and the principals to see like issues that are going on, or like if somebody reports that they're getting bullied, does the officer know about that so he can look out for that? Because you can see stuff in the classroom. If somebody's fighting, instead of letting them go to lunch, you could tell them, oh, please, could you guys stay, or can one stay here or go to another office, to kind of nip it in the bud before it gets out of control.
Okay, to your first question, like I said earlier, the school resource officer unit is considered a specialized unit within law enforcement agencies. When there is an opening, a position available, each agency may operate and handles a little bit differently. Basically, it's posted, and those who are interested in the position put in for an interview, and then the best candidates through the selection process get selected. From what I understand in my experience as an administrator of the school resource officer unit, we do the best job possible to place those officers who have been selected to be part of the unit in the schools that we believe are going to be the most effective, based on years of experience, based on personality, based on just different characteristics of the officer to really match with the atmosphere of the school that they may be assigned to. So, but like I said, every agency may handle that a little bit differently. You'd have to check with each agency if you want something specific.
One person applies and gets the job.
Well, no, not necessarily, because there is an interview process, and if that person is deemed not qualified for the position, he will not get it, and then the process starts all over again. The second part was level of training. So like I said, school resource officers are police officers. They receive the same amount of training from day one in police academy. All the specialized training throughout the year. Agencies in the state of Florida have annual, what they call in-service training. But I can tell you, in my years at the sheriff's office, that in the policy itself, it mandates that those assigned to the school resource officer units go to SRO basic school. There's also SRO intermediate and advanced schools. There's a yearly conference called FASRO that just about every SRO we try to send to, or the agency tries to send to, on top of additional training on vacation weeks, such as spring break and holiday vacations, where they're very intentional about giving SROs extra training on all issues that they may face in a school day.
Hold on just a minute. We do have a training coordinator here, and I wanted Jose Feliciano to come to the microphone. Can you please brief us on some of the practices in your training with law enforcement and SROs?
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Sorry I caught you off guard.
That's okay. My name is Jose Feliciano. I'm a retired Kissimmee police officer, and also I work with the Sheriff's Department. I'm currently a reserve with the Sheriff's Department, and I'm the training coordinator at the Criminal Justice Academy of Oslo right here. I've served as a SRO at Danjon Middle School and at New Beginnings. To clarify the gentleman's question before, the SRO does not handle discipline. Whenever you see an SRO actually going hands-on like what you saw in the video, that has to do with dealing with a law violation. So you're right, discipline meaning suspensions, going to, I don't know, detention, timeout, whatever it is. No, they don't do that. But they are required to respond when there is a criminal offense. So that would be the difference between discipline at a school setting or actually a crime, because they have to go ahead and respond to that. As far as training, there's a SRO school that's 40 hours. They have to go to that for a week of training, along with, like the major said, yearly training. And whenever school's out, so let's say you got spring break, or if the kids are off for Christmas break, that's when we go to training. So we also do training throughout the year for different things that might come up, that might be something that's a focus item. At the academy, they also do training that just touches the surface of dealing with the young kids. So the elephant in the room is hands-on, use of force. And there are many factors involved when the officers are trained to use force. And that's, I think, one of the biggest issues that we probably can get into is understanding the dynamics of using force. No officer wants to use force that doesn't have to, but it happens. And I can go on for a long time, but what I want to offer anybody in this room, especially the kids, anybody that's a student, if you ever want to go to the police academy, just to talk to me, if you have any questions about use of force, the law, how you can become a police officer. Anything that you want to talk about as far as the police academy is concerned, open door policy.
Thank you.
Anytime you want. As far as what Mr. Jones said, one of the important parts of the process when you apply to be a school resource officer is a meeting with the principal of the school that you're going to go to. I was blessed. I had two great principals, Ms. Linda Caswell and Ms. Nina Weidmeyer. And we had a good relationship, and because of that relationship, we were able to do the things you were talking about. If there was a problem with a certain group of kids, we would talk about that. We would meet strategically on things that were happening about school, different events that might be coming up, things that could go wrong. We try to plan so that we can squash it before anything happens.
I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Just out of curiosity. What are the qualifications to be a trainer for SROs or deputies or police officers? Is there some type of certification?
Okay, so no. The training that they receive will go to, so basically, let's say if they want to go to use of force training, that is a specific discipline that a defensive tactic instructor, that is the person that trains that SRO.
Okay.
The SRO doesn't train himself. They go to that specific training to receive that hands-on training. Or de-escalation training, which is someone who's certified to go ahead and teach that. So they go to that training, they learn what is presented to them, that way they could apply it.
Okay.
But again, anybody that wants to, I'll be here, hopefully to the end. Open book, anybody wants to come down, no problem.
Thank you. I know you've been,
What was your third, I'm sorry, what was your third question?
So the third question was, is there a yearly evaluation? Like I worked in corporate, so I always had a 360. So my evaluation, I had to send it to multiple people, multiple departments. So is the evaluation done with the teachers? Well, maybe like a student counselor, and then the sheriff's office, or is it completely the sheriff's office?
The agency does evaluations annually on all of their officers and all the SROs. And I know for a fact that part, especially those SROs, part of the evaluation is that the supervisors talk to the administration and the principals on the performance of that SRO, and that is part of their evaluation, yes.
Okay. So it doesn't include the students at all?
It may at some point, if there's a specific incident, there may be a report or something that may be added. But usually, from my experience, it's with the administration and teachers and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Okay. We have a student here.
Hello?
Hello.
There we go. Okay. My name is Kanaya Rice. I go to Osceola High School. We feel it is important to state that the issues are not one only embedded in race, but rather excessive force. We need to feel safe and not fearful that in addition to navigating the highs and lows of school, we also have to be fearful of the police. Overall, at our schools, the administration and most times SROs do not look like the student population they serve, so there is a cultural and emotional disconnect despite their best intentions. We do not think anyone wakes up and wants to hurt kids, but lack of understanding the population you serve can create a sense of danger where there does not need to be a sense of danger.
That's an excellent question. Excellent.
What you just stated, young lady, is, as already said, excellent. Again, and I want to harp on this, there has to be more than just officers being assigned to a school without input from the administration, parents, and students. Heard what the officer said about he had the opportunity to talk to the principal that he served with at 2 schools. I worked in Osceola County and 2 other counties prior to Osceola County. At no time have I ever been given the opportunity to say, I would like officer so-and-so to be placed in my school. Now, I might be able to tell superintendent or the supervisor for the SRO that I'm not happy with a particular SRO, and they can be eventually removed. But again, everyone who is a principal or assistant principal, dean, any administrative position that they might have, including the SRO, is there to serve the students, period.
Amen.
And you serve students by building relationships. And you build relationships by talking to kids and treating them, students, as fellow citizens and human beings. There has to be a relationship between, because when things do jump off, and I've been on both sides, where I have SROs who could just walk over and talk to a kid, and they calm them down, and the issue is over and done. Had other situations where, let's be frank and honest about this, they're gung-ho and they're ready to take somebody down. That's a fact. That is a fact. So again, I emphasize the point of having input as to what officers come into any school situation, whether it's elementary, middle school, or high school. Parents, students, and the administration needs to have more input in that.
Thank you.
I would hope that the students, if you have a complaint about your resource officer, that you would go to your administrator and complain about that. Students need to go to the principal and complain about the resource officer if there's a problem. Not just let it go by, but just if that resource officer gets enough complaints, then that principal needs to take action as far as getting that resource officer removed from the school. And what qualifications you as students would like to see in a resource officer in your school? What are the qualifications you would like to see? Not just to her, but any other student in here.
To answer your question, I would say that I'd rather see the SROs try to talk to us rather than already knowing. We know that they are at a higher level than us, but then when they treat us like we're little kids, but then expect us to act like we are grown adults, then it's very different for us because it's confusing. And we don't know how to talk to them without them automatically telling us that we're being disrespectful or that we are being unreasonable. So when we are trying to say, we are saying that there are kids out there who are bullying us, when you say, when the adults say that we are being overdramatic, that it'll just pass over, and we are not being heard, we will no longer want to go and talk to them and probably will see them as an enemy because they do not believe us when we are telling them how we feel.
So what you're saying is, what your expectations are from the SRO is to talk to us, not at us.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And that's exactly why we're here, because this is the kind of thing that we need to hear so that when we go back and try to implement changes, if that's what we decide to do, we're getting it from you, not from me.
Exactly.
So thank you.
Yeah, I like it.
But then I would also like to add that as a student and as a black person, I know that with everything that's going on out there, when we now see officers in the school, we automatically already think that they're not going to treat us fair, that they are going to be like the officers that are out there, whether they are or not. Now, when we see videos, like the video we saw, we are even more scared to even be in the same vicinity as them because we are fearful that we could just be walking, not really doing anything, and they could take it as something else, and we are automatically in danger.
Let me say something real quick. No human being, whether you 8 or 88, should have to live in fear of law enforcement because the scope of being in law enforcement, their general objective is what? To protect and serve. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But you can't protect me if I'm afraid of you. And the question needs to be asked, so why am I afraid of you? Put me in a comfort zone so that I don't have to live in fear because you are on my side, not behind me. Am I correct?
Yes.
Is that okay?
But then we say that, but then they act like their job is not to protect and serve.
No, let me say this. Because every law enforcement officer, whether he's an SRO, a deputy, a chief, a major, they all took an oath. And part of that oath is to protect, defend, and obey. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jose. And that oath is sacred, and it's not only sacred, but it's also serious. And when you go against that oath, that's a major problem.
But then if, like, say if this SRO is still allowed to go back into school with those students, that is a message to other SROs and to other students that this is okay, that the way that they treat people is okay.
Okay.
Listen, y'all, we hear you tonight. You've spoken at the school board meetings and you've expressed yourself. I'm hoping that the school board and the sheriff and the police officers hear what you're saying, that they would get a task force together so that this will not happen again, to try to solve these issues and come up with answers, to include community and students on the task force, not just to talk among themselves, but to include all of the partners in the community, students, parents, and teachers, as well as the sheriff and the school board should work together to come up with solutions so this will not happen again. They just can't solve it among themselves. They need to hear from everyone. So hopefully they're taking notes from what you're saying tonight and what you said at school board meeting and other places. They're taking notes, and perhaps we can come up with some solutions, that this will not happen again, and they hear what you're saying.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I have a guest here that I'm going to get to your question too, and yours too, but I think you're getting ready to leave, so I need to have you here now. This is a representative from the National Alliance Network. Luana Gelsner wants to come and speak and address the audience. You want to go to the microphones?
Actually, it's Luana Gelser with the National Action Network of Central Florida. I'm the president. It's okay, darling. The Milton word action is about us. The reason why I'm here is for the family. I cover a lot of counties, but I've heard more people address the issue where you from. They're understanding it doesn't matter. As a taxpayer, it's not where I'm from, it's that I'm here. And we're here to bring solutions. And the question will pose to you, what is the rules and regulations for having school resource officers in the schools? It could be three types. The school boards, Osceola County, Orange County, others have, your interpretation was, we wanted law enforcement. But you forgot one thing. When you allowed law enforcement into our schools, they brought the unions, qualified immunity, and the Bill of Rights. And you have literally put our children at risk for what we are experiencing throughout the country. Since they've been in our schools, 70% of all arrests of women, girls, black girls, is 70%. It's been an increase. It's about guns, but no one's talking about the NRA. No one's talking about the NRA. We have been asking for mothers demanding action, have been taught, we don't want guns, we want you to do background checks. So let's be honest, there's a lot of things going on here. Money, politics, and PR. And the PR is, we want to make sure everybody look okay, but the students have said, it's not just here in Osceola County. Rochester, New York, I'm going to be on a call tonight, a 9-year-old being pepper sprayed, already in handcuffs. But I've heard one positive thing from the retired principal. He did not get a chance to even see who was coming into his school. You didn't even respect his ability to know what his students needed and what reaction, who can interact with them properly. So I'm just here, I was supposed to speak, and I'm just listening to the questions, And it's really mind-boggling that you're not understanding. They're telling you solutions. But please, I know police are supposed to protect and serve. I was on a call today with the Bowman's group. The city of Orlando, please, $800,000 to try to figure out a problem. And the problem is, where did policing come from? The slave patrol. It came from the slave patrol. I know what you're supposed to do, but you got a lot of bad apples, and you got that blue wall of silence, and you're protected. If I had did what that officer did to Miss Taylor, I would have been arrested on the spot. There was no crime. Look at Seminole County. There's examples to look at the memorandums of agreement and the contracts. Suggestion, look at them. They don't supposed to interact when it comes to discipline, because all a police officer knows to do is arrest. That's it. So if they're in our schools, it's the last result, not the first. Because that officer is on paid administrative leave, and it's a strong possibility nothing will happen to him. And that's the reality, and that's what the students, that's what I'm saying, and that's what the country is saying. We've marched enough. We've marched enough. We talked about policing reformed. But you're taking my tax dollars in Osceola County, Orange County, all throughout the state, and you made a decision. Be willing to go back and evaluate the decision and learn from this tragedy and change it. Please listen and look at other counties. Do that research. Have a task force, not just with police officers, school teachers, but people throughout the state that can bring you solutions that have worked. If you're willing to get down and dirty and get to work. Your feelings are going to get hurt. My feelings get hurt. Are we here to protect our children? Because I spoke Tuesday. School to prison pipeline is a reality. And my children, your children is not a commodity. If you criminalize children behavior, all you're doing is setting them up for failure and straight to the prison so you can make money off of them. So that's why the family got up. They were hearing things, but if we are talking about solutions, I'm with you. I'm on board. And it's not about pointing out someone and saying you're wrong. It's accepting that there was something wrong that transpired, and it has been happening for a while, because I spoke. This is not your first incident in Osceola County. Hello. You had a 13-year-old boy choked out. You settled it out of court. You have other incidents. You had a Caucasian male bring a gun to school, and nothing happened to him. Children talk. People see. You're treating people differently. You're treating the children differently based on the color of their skin. And that's what we need to be talking about. Racism, systemic racism exists. Don't think it's out the door because you want it out the door. It's not. And it's embedded in the culture of policing. I didn't say every police was bad because I got them in my family. However, we have that serious conversation. And the conversation is, if I'm afraid to come to my teacher or somebody else, give them another person to come and tell somebody there's a problem. Don't make them be fearful and keep it inside. The mental health problems that our community is going to deal with from just that and others is tragic. So I'm here to help. I'm here to bring solutions, whether it be from New York, California, it doesn't matter. If it's working somewhere else, let's try something different. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I'm ready. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. So before the board asks, I am from Osceola County. I attended school here my whole life. Mr. Feliciano was my SRO at one point in school. My name is Jada Murray. So I kind of have a problem with this conversation. I attend Solid Rock, and one of the things that we're taught constantly in church is that prayer without works is dead. And the biggest problem that I have here in this meeting is 3/4 of the board is retired. And Ms. Castillo, no disrespect, you represent Osceola High School and Celebration High School.
I represent the entire district. I was elected by that district, but I represent everyone in Osceola County.
Understood. But again, you're one member of the school board.
I am.
There's an elephant in the room that we haven't been addressing. This issue happened with the sheriff's office. Where is the sheriff's office?
Hello,
Where are they? I don't see a member of the, active member of the Osceola County Sheriff's Office here. I do not see somebody that represents the SRO unit at the Osceola County Sheriff's Office here. How are we supposed to have a conversation to bring about change if the active party that was involved in this situation is not here representing themselves? This is a dead conversation. No action can take place because there's nobody here that can take action. That's the biggest issue that I have here. So my question is, how do we bring about the things that we're talking about in this meeting to fruition without the involved party here?
Well, let me say this. It's a start. You have to start somewhere.
How many of these conversations are we going to have, Ms. Edie? Because back in June, when we had the George Floyd marches and things of that nature, and we had all these conversations, and here we are in February 2021 with the same thing, and no changes. When Sheriff Lopez ran for office, he ran for office under the platform of being a community officer. I do not see community. He ran saying that he was the people's officer. He said that he was going to have these commissions and task force that were going to bring about reform to the police. I think this would have been an opportunity for him to show that.
Well, let me answer your question, because I personally did not want to make this political. I wanted this to be humanitarian. I did not want to bring in any elected officials into this forum. This is the start of something that could get even bigger and better. But we had to start somewhere. So did I invite the sheriff? No, I didn't. And I take the blame for that. If you want to blame me for not inviting the sheriff, I'm sorry. My sincere apologies. I just wanted to have a conversation with our youth, because that's what was asked.
Understood. And so I understand your point of view and what you're saying. I think where I'm having the issue is that not every person in the Osceola County Sheriff's Office is an elected official. And so I'm sure that the person who runs the SRO unit isn't an elected official. So I understand your point of view of not wanting to invite Sheriff Lopez, but we could have had this conversation with somebody that represents Osceola County Sheriff.
And we can have it again. We can do it again if that's what you guys want. But this is just a start.
I get it. And it's a start, but I kind of feel like there should have been somebody. It's like we can have the conversation, but to me, what's the action plan? What do we go about with doing this? Because we all know that movements die very quickly. And so if we have this momentum now and we have this community meeting and we say this is a start and we're going to take it somewhere else, there's a good chance that the momentum that we're currently experiencing will be dead by the time we're ready to have that conversation with the sheriff. So I kind of feel as though, and I'm not blaming you, Ms. Edie, because I appreciate what you organized and what you did and the work that you do for the city of Kissimmee and Osceola County at large.
Thank you.
I think the conversation should have started with all parties in the first place, because there's a lot of hurt in this community. And it's not just this situation in hand, this is years. And we have to have that honest conversation. And there should have been somebody here from the sheriff's office.
I can facilitate another forum with either a representative from the Osceola County Sheriff's Department or the sheriff himself. I can do that. That's not a problem.
Okay. But I just wanted, because I just wanted to make that, that statement that, it's good that we're having this conversation. It's good. A lot of things have come to the forefront that we need to address.
Right.
The policies, what does an SRO do? Where do their duties stop and administration starts, and vice versa? And I think this is a great conversation that we're having today. But I think it's missing a piece is basically what I'm just trying to get at.
Yeah, I totally, let me, Clint. Okay. We do have a representative here from the Oslo County Sheriff's Office. We have Mr. Clint Williams. Can you please go to the microphone, please? Her concern is that she doesn't see that there's adequate representation from the Oslo County Sheriff's Office at this forum. As I stated, I thought that this was a start, but can you address some of the issues, please?
Well, first of all, no one here is from the Sheriff's Office because they weren't invited. No one from the Sheriff's Office is here because they were not invited.
Exactly.
The forum, my understanding, was for an opportunity for students to be able to say, this is what I would like to have in my school.
Right.
Which means that they would be able to say, in a utopia world, this is what I would like school to look like in reference to security issues are concerned, so that those issues can be brought back to a forum where they could be addressed. That was my understanding.
Correct.
Okay.
And one of the things that I've said in the couple of interviews that I did, and even when I reached out to each one of the panelists, was that this forum was not here to bash anybody, to downplay the integrity of the Osceola County Sheriff's Office or the Osceola County School District. This was just a forum so that our youth can be heard, because there's a cry out there. And they just wanted someone to hear the cry. That's why it was created. Now, if you want to take this to another level and have a representative from the Osceola County Sheriff's Office, we can make that happen. That's not a problem, but the issue was not to bring in, and I'm not saying that Sheriff Lopez is good or bad. We didn't invite him because I thought this was a community forum. No elected officials, no big-time dignitaries, none of that to be here. But if you want them here, that's the click of a mouse or a touch of a telephone keystroke to make it happen, but that's not the scope of this meeting. Does that make sense? Thank you, Clint. And we have another.
No, if I can just vouch for Dora, she's been waiting for just a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Can you guys, okay, so I can.
Sorry, Dora.
My name is Dora Diaz. I'm the president of the Osceola Young Democrats. I am a former Osceola County teacher. I used to work with Jose Feliciano at New Beginnings. So I'm gonna talk about what I know, which is education. Before things escalate, before an SRO is called, there's a lot of things that happen. And I want to know more information about the decision-making process of an administrator, because we have administrators here, before an SRO is called. And I also want to know, as an administrator, because our kids go to teachers, our kids go to principals, our kids go to our assistant principal, what do you want to see changed with the SRO program in Osceola County? I'm more interested in that. And what I had a great relationship with my principal. I had a great relationship with the RSOs, 2 of them that I've been through. I barely had to call the SRO because I had that relationship with my students. That does not happen in every classroom because kids may not feel like that comfortable. And all my students did not feel comfortable talking to me, so I can probably refer them to someone else. And I came to Jose Feliciano for resources, and he helped me in that part. That's me as a former teacher. But that doesn't happen in every classroom. That does not happen in every school where I can have that relationship with my principal or with my SRO. So across the school board, what's that disciplinary action model looking like? How come maybe we don't see restorative justice, which is a proven format of reducing violence, de-escalating situation? Because that's something that maybe Terry can do. Fix that or even establish a disciplinary model. So if you guys can answer that from retired principals and school board, what does that look like? What's that relationship? I also wanted to point out that my SRO and my principal communicated their roles to our teachers, to our students. When there was a teacher-student night, the SRO was there talking to parents. That does not happen at every school. Yeah. That happened at my school. So how can we kind of standardize everything where the students can?
Yeah, thank you, Dora, for your question. I think that's, if I can get anything from this conversation, is we do need standards, right? I think somebody calls it an SOP. We have suggestions, right? We have policy that's put in place, but every school has their principal and every school has their culture. So then the question is, how do we take the kinds of things that you're talking about and make it part of our culture? So that is something I think we definitely might need to have some conversation about, because I have had conversations with parents who do love their schools and do have a great culture and do have a great relationship with their SROs, but I've also had the opposite conversation. And so then the question becomes, well, first, why is that happening? And second, how can we make it better? And yes, that is something that I can definitely have conversations about. I know that you wanted to say something as well.
Can you hold on just a second and I'll get back with you. Go ahead.
I need to just briefly interrupt. I know that the hour is far spent. I must interrupt our town hall. I'm not quite sure that everybody understands that the mother of Taylor Bracy and father were in the room, and they still hear me right now. And I want to pause this town hall to offer a prayer on their behalf, because this is not just intellectual debate. This is somebody's child that we're talking about tonight. And for the record, I have done my due diligence to allow for this to be a public discourse. However, we are in the Lord's house. And the Bible says that the truth will set us free. And the truth here tonight must be proclaimed. What happened to Taylor Bracy was wrong. I haven't heard that said tonight, so I feel like as the minister, I must say that it was wrong. It was wrong. It was categorically wrong. There's no policy, there's no mandate that calls for a child to be knocked down unto unconsciousness and apprehended with an immobilized body. That is wrong. If they are able to bring in Kyle Rittenhouse without a scratch, Taylor Bracy should go home healthy and whole. If they can bring in Dylan Roof, who went into a black church and murdered 8 people, and they were able to apprehend him and buy him Burger King without a scratch, Taylor Bracy should have been brought home without a scratch. We have watched at the U.S. Capitol. We've seen police demonstrate de-escalation. So we know it's possible. We want the same policing that they experience in their community for us to experience in our communities. That is the truth. That is what you must see. That is what you must hear. And it must be said tonight. So in that spirit, I want to offer this prayer for a hurting mother and a hurting father. Let us pray. Gracious God, we pray yet again for Taylor Bracy. Pray for her family. We don't know the immeasurable hurt that this event has caused. Regardless of the policy, regardless of the legality, we know you are a God of morality. And we know an unjust law is no law at all. And so we gather tonight to extend not our heads, but our hearts to this family. We've come here tonight to ask for your blessings, to ask for your peace that surpasses all understanding, to guard their hearts and their minds. We've come here tonight to hear the children. We've come here tonight not to bash one another, but to tell the truth, because there can be no conversation, Lord, without confrontation. And tonight we invite your help. Help us to look ourselves, our nation, in a mirror and say, can a nation that arrests a 6-year-old child be carrying out the will of God? Can a nation that tases a 9-year-old be carrying out the will of God? No, it cannot be so. Bring justice in our land. Strengthen this family. Heal our dear sister, Taylor, wherever she is, that she would be healed, strengthened from the trauma and the physical harm that she has been dealt. And we thank you that justice will be served in Jesus' name. And to respect to all other religions represented here, hosts, we're in your hands again.
Pastor Quaynu. We had another question.
Hello, my name is Trevion Telfair, and I am currently a student in Castillo County. Going off of your question that you stated earlier, if we have a problem with the resource officer, you said that we should report it, right? But how many times does it take for parents and students to report a resource officer until he made that one sudden bad move on that student? How many times is it going to take for us to show that there's videos out there that this is not just happening here in Florida, this is happening all around the world. So how can we make a change and justify the actions that resource officers take towards engaging with the students when it comes to fights and stuff like that?
Need to call all of the involved individuals, talk to the superintendent, also the the sheriff, all the other officers involved, and parents to have a meeting, not just one-on-one, but you need to have a task force to meet concerning that problem, concerning the issue. I think the officer behind you, have an input on that? He's an officer, he's a retired officer, Gibbons.
Well, I appreciate it. I just wanted to say, my name is Archie Gibbons. I'm a retired corrections officer of about 30, plus years. And, I've only been here just a short while, but I've heard a lot of conversation. One thing that struck me was what the young lady said from Osceola, I believe, that when she, makes an effort, to say anything about an issue that they may be having, with an officer, they feel as though they may not be heard, or may not be taken seriously. And therein lies the problem. But it can be remedied if you simply, just as Sister Macmillan just said, and I think this gentleman was alluding to, is to establish some sort of task force. Students need to be able to address their issues, their concerns, with the certainty that they're going to be heard. Certainty that they're going to be heard. You know, if there's an issue with that they feel with an officer or with a teacher or anyone, they need to be able to address that issue, you know, document their concerns, make it known to the administration, police chief, sheriff, whomever, and then it needs to be addressed. But they need to feel as though they have an ear, an advocate, somebody. And so that needs to be done. When I was working in corrections, if I had an issue because I heard something from an officer or an inmate, it didn't matter. If I heard something, then it's my responsibility to address my issue or what I heard to that officer, especially if it was something that would be deemed, you know, against policy. Then I would address that officer if I heard it. Even if an inmate told me, I would address it. And so the students, they need to know that these issues, whatever they are, that they're going to be addressed. And that's how you nip issues like this in the bud. That's how you get to the bottom of it before it even becomes an issue. You know, well, we may not have, you know, we don't have a Derek Chauvin here. Well, you may not until you do. And then what will you do? So between the school board, the principals, law enforcement, you need to get together to make sure that these students have a hotline or something that they can document their concerns about an SRO or a teacher or something, and then they need to know that it's handled. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question.
Yeah.
I heard you guys saying, you know, you asking us, are we from Osceola County? I feel like it shouldn't matter where we're from.
It doesn't.
As a student, we don't, and a friend to, you know, students at Liberty, when they walk outside of Liberty walls, we don't know what they go through.
Absolutely.
And we don't know what type of trauma they carry on their backs at the end of the day. It's bigger than all of us.
Absolutely.
If there's a problem, there's a solution. And we got to find that solution fast.
Yeah.
And
I completely agree with you.
as a community and as a school in general, there should be some type of gathering with the students with a, you know, altercation like this for healing. I feel like there should only take one period out the day, just for the day, to gather administration and students.
That's right.
So we can all grieve and, you know, let everything out and open arms on how we feel.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Wakumi Douglas. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm with the Black Girls Matter Coalition, and I just want to share just very briefly, Trey came up to the mic very humbly just now, but Trey is an incredibly powerful student leader at Liberty High School, who we're not from the county, but we got the opportunity to support him in response to what's happened at Liberty, and he's been so courageous and so brave and so powerful. So it's obvious that you're doing a lot right here in this county with your students.
It's been amazing to get to connect with Trey. I want to make an offering. There has been, I'm a social worker, a restorative justice practitioner, and an advocate for young people, and have been so for a couple of decades now. I know I look so young. It's come up a few times, the hurt, the pain, the distrust, the harm, and the depth of the harm, and the depth of the impact of what happened at Liberty High School on the students and on the larger community. And Trey just spoke to it, and the former teacher, Dora, also mentioned the word restorative justice. And I'm here to offer, as a person that trains in restorative justice and as a practitioner in restorative justice, support, to the school board member and the district and what's needed to be able to bring forth circle process, healing process, and restorative process to hold the community in their healing. And also to think about how to begin to transform the school culture from one that's rooted in punitive measures, right? Police and such are about crime and punishment. The school, as was mentioned, is not a battleground. It's a place for learning and development. Our children have the right to make mistakes, and they have the right to be supported when those mistakes happen. Many folks here might know that the vast majority, I do work with Black girls in the juvenile legal system who have been arrested, many of whom at school. The vast majority of the girls sitting in detention right now have histories of trauma and abuse that they experienced before they ever met a police officer, to Trey's point. So when young people are getting in trouble and making mistakes, there's often an underlying reason for it. And what restorative justice offers is tools and resources to be able to get to that underlying reason so we can really support the student and prevent things from happening again. So I just want to offer restorative justice as a tool as you are thinking about how to heal the community here. And I would love to be a plug or a resource to network here in Central Florida, statewide network, and national networks of folks that do training and support for schools in restorative justice. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Logan Mesa. I'm with the Black Girls Matter Coalition and Florida Student Power Network. Just before I just ask my question, I just want to say that to call this conversation forth and to actively not be listening to community and students is harmful and it's very violent. And folks are saying that they are hurt and they are harmed. And what I'm seeing is that there's a wall, right? So I just want to name that first, because there's no reason why folks should be feeling so impacted and so raw that they need to get up and leave, right? This is meant to be like a restorative forum from what I'm understanding. So I just want to name that first, that there is hurt and harm that's occurring in this room right now. So I understand that SROs receive training to foster positive and fruitful interactions, between students and law enforcement. However, I'm deeply confused and alarmed by the blatant lack and disregard that these officers are having for the training that they're receiving to be able to do this work, right? So we're seeing things like what happened in this county happening across the country, and they shouldn't be happening. It just so happens that this one went viral. Things like this is why communities cannot trust law enforcement, because we have been shown throughout history that engaging with law enforcement is literally a gamble with our lives. It's very clear that there's a lack of trauma-informed care here that is required to do this work and do this work well. So what is up with that? Like, why is there such an insistence on doubling down on the militarization of schools when it clearly isn't working, and putting a Band-Aid on things instead of getting to the root of it? And what is the awareness and commitment to different healing modalities like what Kumi just offered with restorative justice and other ways that we can heal versus the punitive measures that are being taken in our schools and communities?
So, okay. I guess I'll go ahead and try to answer that. First, I do want to say, as a member of this community, when I'm being told that I don't have empathy or that there's a wall, it does make me feel like perhaps I'm not expressing myself correctly, but obviously I have very deep roots in my county, and I want my county healed. That is the reason why I'm not talking, I'm listening. There has been a lot of things said here, and a lot of the things that have been said are things that I'm going to process as a member of my community, and are things that I'm going to talk about with the other parties involved. This was supposed to be just a one conversation of many. I don't believe that change happens from Monday to Tuesday. Change, especially cultural change, takes a lot of time, a lot of commitment, and speaking of hurt feelings or, it's gonna get ugly, yeah, it is, because we have to face things within ourselves that are not working, but that does also require that we have patience and empathy for each other. So if there is anyone here who thinks that there's a wall that I don't understand, that is not correct, okay? I would never put myself in a position like this if I didn't deeply care about my community. So with regards to what are the changes that we are gonna make, I'm not the kind of person who tells people what changes I'm gonna make without actually listening, right? This is the first conversation. Well, it's really not. I've had other conversations privately with parents and students and some of my mentees. This is one of the first public conversations we're having, right? So I would ask that you have empathy, not just for me, but for the other people in this community who have honestly put themselves out here today, because before I'm a school board member, I'm a member of this community. Before that, I'm a mom. Before that, I'm a student that was educated in this county. So no matter how this conversation has gone, for me, it has been positive because it has opened my eyes to things that I may not be aware of. But I am gonna ask not just of you and the folks that you work with, but of everyone in this community to have patience and empathy, because we're trying, right? The reason I'm here is because we're trying. Ugly conversations, tough conversations. What can we do? That's why I'm here. I'm learning about restorative justice, right? I'm learning that our students don't feel safe talking to their teachers. I'm learning that other people have come forth to speak for them because they didn't feel like they could come here. Yeah, that hurts my feelings. Those are my kids. So I absolutely want to hear this, but I need to have time to be able to fix it, right? So thank you for being here and opening my eyes to a lot of these things that are happening. But with regards to what we can do, I cannot and will not give you an answer today because there's a lot of things that we have to explore, and some of the things that were mentioned here are some of the things that I want to explore. So I hope that at least gives you a little glimmer of an answer for what you asked.
Can I add to that what Terry said and what you said about history? And I think it's very important for, now speaking in as far as our specific law enforcement agencies, is I think the leadership within our agencies have to identify the history of law enforcement in America. That whether it's my first day at the job, I'm a rookie cop, or I'm a 20-year administrator leading 200-300 officers in the school resource officer division, whatever, that when I put on that uniform, although I was not around in the 60s and 70s or during the Jim Crow laws, I wear that history, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That we identify that, yes, at one point in our history in the United States, police officers with guns and badges and uniforms were enforcing unjust laws. And that families still remember that, and they pass it on to the next generation. And there's a distrust automatically in young people like yourself when they see a police officer, whether they have had experience with a police officer or not. And that I have to understand that when I'm meeting whether it's a young person or an older person or whatever, that I carry that history as a police officer. And I have to identify, doing my job, that this person may not trust me. I may be the most empathetic and compassionate officer there is in the world. It doesn't matter if the person I'm trying to interact with has that in the back of their mind and in their heart. And so it's imperative for our leadership within law enforcement and working with other county leaders and our school boards and things like that to encompass all that to really better serve our students and our community. And so I think that needs to be part of training, needs to be part of being aware, especially the new people coming on, the new officers coming on. 1, 2, 3 years on the job who later on are going to become an SRO, who may be ignorant to that history, and to understand there's still families out there and young people out there who remember that or who are told this and see that. And regardless, if on top of everything that we're seeing now, especially with things going viral, mistakes that officers make, illegal things that they do, that all that is shared and really compounds on that history. And so that's why we have to do a better job in some areas. And I thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. May I comment? I just like to say that this really has been a productive meeting. It wasn't the direction in which we planned, with the students speaking out. But I'd like to let you know that the NAACP has already planned a meeting with the sheriff Wednesday. So we invite you to be a part of that Zoom meeting. We have the link. I have a couple of addresses that I'll send it to you, and you can join Zoom and have your input. However, this would have been a good meeting for him to actually hear, but we did not want it to be a confrontation for him to give the same answer. I've turned it over to the FDLE. Sure. I wanted him to come up with some answers. We've taken notes, and we'll take these notes back to the school board and to the sheriff, and we're asking them to let us be a part of their task force and to include parents as well as teachers and representatives from the NAACP to be a part of the task force, to have the entire representation from the community, not just talk about it among themselves.
Hold on, Ms. May.
Yes.
Hold on, he has
Thank
a
you.
question.
Okay.
The gentleman he's been standing there.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
No, that's yours. Go
Thank
ahead,
you,
sir.
Commissioner.
Uh-huh.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ruiz. First, I must congratulate you guys. It's a good start. Got to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
And so I congratulate you and your team. My heart goes out to Miss Taylor, the young lady that we're all here, the reason why we're here, and her family. And my heart goes out to that young lady who came here and speaks so eloquently about her position in school. And so I'm an adult, most of us are here, and we're fearful of the cops, of the police officers as adults. So can you imagine a child in school with a police officer that don't even look like her? Are you kidding me, people? The principals don't have the power to say, hey, I want a black or a Spanish person in my school. That is the first thing we need to address. That need to change. Come on, people. What are we there for? What are we here for? That need to change now. Not tomorrow, not next week. That need to change. Why are we here? You cannot have a school with 2,000 students. Half of the students look like me. The half look like Spanish. But you have pure white officer. They will not get along with us. We've been doing it for over 150 years. It not gonna change. It will not change. We need to get black officers in the schools. No matter what we hear talk about policies and guidelines, come on. Cops don't follow policies and guidelines when it comes to me. They don't. We have seen it everywhere. We need to get real.
Thank you.
Another thing, I'm coming. Another thing. My daughter graduated from one of the school in Osceola County.
Pleasant Hill, I believe.
No. It's Celebration. 2 years ago. This could have been my daughter. It could have been my daughter.
Yeah.
I used to go to parent-teacher meeting. I mean, I see no black people. Where are we when it comes to parent-teachers meeting? None of us shows up. So the decisions that are made are only made with the white folks. And they make the decisions to say, I want a white officer to protect my kids. We don't go nowhere. So the first thing we have to do is change our mindset, people. My people, we have to change our mindset. We have to go to parents-teacher meeting, get involved with our kids' life, not just at home, but in the schools. Where are we in encouraging the young people to go be a police officer? If we want to see more police officers in the school, we need to encourage our daughters and sons to go and get a career in the police business. If we don't do these things, we will be here next year, the same thing, talking the same thing. We've been doing it for 150 years. When are we going to change our mindset, people? Parent-teachers meeting, we have to go and leave the house and go and protect your kids. That is the protection we all need. Otherwise, we're going to see it on social media, and then we come to a meeting, we talk, nothing happened. We cannot blame anybody but ourselves for this. I thank you for your time.
Okay, I have two other people that I need to get their questions out. Jonathan.
Oh, wow, I guess I don't need an introduction, huh? How do I, disconnect this thing? Rip it out. All right. Yeah, hello, everyone. My name's Jonathan Santiago. If anyone does know me, I'm a community organizer here in Central Florida for the past couple of years now, since 2014. I guess I just wanted to start off real quick just by asking a question, if possible, to the active deputy. And so the department wasn't invited. So I guess what I want to ask you, sir, is why did you make the decision to come here and attend?
Wait, I can address it. He's not a deputy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He works for the Oslo County Sheriff's Office in the legal department, but he's not a deputy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can explain that.
Okay.
As I stated previously, when it was brought to my attention that we needed to do a community forum, we didn't want to make this political. This was just a humanitarian, I need to stop saying the word just though, but this was scheduled to be a humanitarian effort to hear the cries of the young people, because those who had approached me with this. So I said I would do something, but I don't want any elected officials other than Terry Castillo and any law enforcement, the sheriff. I did not want them there because I was under the impression they didn't want them there. They just wanted us, the community, to hear them.
Gotcha.
So maybe there was a misunderstanding of the purpose of this meeting. It wasn't to be a round table with the sheriff and come up with solutions. That's another meeting. This meeting here was just to hear the outcries of our youth.
And Angela, I completely understand that. But the way I see things and how we treat things is that we glorify these elected officials, where technically, they call themselves politicians, but in reality, they should be calling themselves public servants. And this is a public event. And, the purpose of being a public servant is to serve the public. And I understand that it doesn't need to be a round table, but at least show a face or attendance of just at least that there's someone listening to what's going on. And I just, the only reason why I brought that up, because I wanted to tie into something and answer some questions that I guess were asked by guest speakers. But I guess it'll make more sense if I just start off sharing a personal story real quick. But for those of you who don't know, in 2014, Angela, but before she became an elected official, actually volunteered with me on a political campaign. She spent her free time mostly every day to come and help me with the work I was doing. And towards the end of the campaign, I'll still won't forget this in the office, but she ends up asking me my opinion for something. And she ended up asking me, hey, Jonathan, what do you think about if I run one day. If I'm thinking about possibly running for next cycle, you know, what's your idea of that? What do you think of it? And the day she told me that, I think was one of the most happiest moments in the career, in my career and the work that I do. That someone who's genuine from the public was going to run for an elected official position. And, you know, it really shows who you are, Angela. I mean, you hosting this meeting and having this meeting, and you're not even a commissioner anymore, and you holding this community meeting shows a lot about your character. And I guess what I wanted to tie in that story with is that there was a young woman here who she mentioned what were the next action steps. And when I heard that, the answer that immediately came to my head was accountability. We need to pay attention to what our local officials are doing and be accountable. We need to have a list of everything that they've done in their term and hold them accountable. Hold them accountable to things that they've said and flip-flopped on. The next steps is after accountability is voting these people out. If our elected officials don't listen to us, I mean, even in my experience in Osceola County, there's some elected officials that don't do anything and just continue to win elections. We need to be awake and filter those elected officials out and fill them in with more genuine people. And like I was mentioning before, we can't hold these political figures as glorified people. We need to fill these seats in with good, honest, genuine people, just as, like ourselves, just as some of the guest speakers. I don't know if you're old enough to run one day, but maybe push someone that you feel passionate about that can actually make a difference to fill in these positions. It's not that hard it's actually very difficult to run for a seat, but it's very stressful. But I mean the process of actually running and becoming a candidate, we need to get these people who have this mentality of, I'm going to run for something and have a power position. No, we need, like I was stating about Angela, we need to get good, genuine people into office. And Angela, the day the day you won was one of the most happiest moments, and it gave me hope that we can actually get good people into office, and you volunteer your free time to help people, and we all need to start getting those more people like you into office to get things done. So
thank you so much, Jonathan. And we had one more, and then we can close out.
Hi, everyone. So I'm with, these are my colleagues, and I'm actually not here as an organizer. I am part of this Black Girls Matter Coalition, but I'm actually here as a mental health intern. So I'm a therapist in training. I will become a registered intern in Florida in July, and then I have to get my license and all that stuff. But I just want to say that in listening to this all, and my colleague Logan spoke about harm and the way this conversation is going, and as a therapist, I just have to say that when I listen to this, I hear a process of almost like, even like at the smallest system, like family fighting in a sense. Like I say something that is hard to hear, and then I'm going to push back and be defensive. And I want to say that the only person so far that I feel like really took the moment to acknowledge the pain in the committee up here was you, when you talked about the history of the system and to where we are and how we need to move with us in that sense. And we know that on January 6th, there was a lot of officers at that insurrectionist too. So it's not history. It's happening right now still. And we need to acknowledge together as a community, not be defensive. And that is imperative for the healing of every victim and every survival in a community to be able to move forward towards solutions. And I know it's hard being in y'all's positions. People come at you all the time with things that you need to do, and this is how you need to do it. and this is that, and this is, and I get that, and I do have compassion for you. And also, the most of the community here, it seemed like they felt like they had to prove to you that this was a problem. And to me, as someone who's a therapist, when people are trying to prove that there's a problem, they don't feel listened to. And so that's just something I offer, and I think that healing justice is important, and the way we have these conversations is important, and that there's a system in place that, the field of therapy I'm in is systemic therapy, so we look at how systems affect mental health. There's a system in place that is pushing people down, and there's statistics that show that depression is at a higher rate because of the ways these systems are interacting with us. So people who are in the system, are you dedicated to helping heal the system together with us, or are you protecting it? That's all I got to say.
Get it. Thank you. Make it quick, because we're over our time already.
Sorry.
Go ahead, you're fine,
Okay. So I understand fights, threats, and roughhousing can lead to some serious criminal charges when before you used to get suspended for, a week or 2 weeks and stuff like that. So I wanted to know, can a school decide whether to make an arrest or not? Because I feel like if somebody gets arrested, now they can have a felony. That's on their permanent record. This is going to affect their future for voting, getting housing, getting certain jobs. So I wanted to pose that question to you guys.
Well, again, as I said earlier, once the law enforcement takes over, it's out of the administrator's hand. We cannot tell them to arrest someone or not to arrest someone. We don't have that authority once they take over.
Yeah. So it depends on the incident itself. So let's say it's a fight between two students, and so there's battery charges on each side. Them being juveniles or under 18, it would be up to the parents of the children if they want to press charges on each other to go forward with charges. Depending on who the victim is of the crime, then depends on if that victim wants to prosecute, if the deputy or the officer is going to press charges, take them to JDC or whatever the case may be. And I totally recognize with you that 10, 15, 20 years ago, kids get into a fight, okay, they got a couple days suspensions. Now kids are going to jail, and that's having a detrimental effect on our society and our children moving up in the future. Now they have a criminal record, whether it's misdemeanors. And it's probably not the best thing to do, but at the same time, we're trying to balance. I can tell you since 2010, we've had over 400 shooting incidents in schools in America. So how do we combat the issue of safety with these weapons that are coming into our schools, hardening our schools, making them safer, making a better educational environment, at the same time mitigating the issue of kids getting into fights, kids being kids, and working with the schools to, just because it did something that perhaps is something that kids always do, for them to try to avoid having a criminal record when 20 years ago that wasn't happening, and understanding the detrimental effect that has on the child itself and in society as a whole.
Yeah, I would love the schools and the police enforcement to kind of recognize that, because, I could have been bullied to a point where I snapped. I would have been, I'm fighting with someone now. And because of that snap decision, now my life is kind of going, ruined, basically. I have all these charges behind me because my teacher didn't listen to me, telling me that, these two girls or these people are bothering me or harassing me. Okay, that's it.
You're right. Makes a point. We've had some great dialogue here tonight. Do we have any resolutions? No. But it's the start of something that could get even better for us as a community if we continue the conversation. I want to thank you all for coming here tonight. Let's continue this. We got to continue this. Our children need this to be continued. We cannot stop just because of tonight. We got to keep going. When we walk out this door, we got to remember, you know what? We're not done. We are not done. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Nice to see you.